We did it, Tanya.
I know, right?
We made it. Oh my gosh. All right. So, first of all, happy Tuesday to everybody. It's Slice of Pie Tipsy Tuesday, hosted by LearnCoachModelGroup.com. I know I'm supposed to beg everybody to please like, love, share, and all those influencer speaks that you're supposed to do. Please go ahead and do that. But I'm so excited. Tanya Turner is in the house, HR Rock Model. Welcome, Tanya.
I know. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here to talk a lot about human resources. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So this is one of those conversations that for those of you all who are, and by the way, please drop your comments in the chat. We can't see if you're which area you're coming from, if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube or whatever, y'all. So just make sure you're liking the video and also drop your questions in the chat for Tanya. But I do have a cheat in terms of questions this time because I want to make sure I get everything I can out of her.
I'm ready to bring it. I'm ready to give it.
All right. So you've been with an HR leader for more than 20 years, which is actually saying a lot because this is one of those areas I think once you get into human resources, you kind of fall in love with it, don't you think? Because it's how you're reaching people. What brought you into this function?
That is a really great question. I would have to say I did not choose human resources. It actually chose me. And so
Ooh.
when I think about that, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and so ultimately, when I first came and got my degree in journalism, I was thinking I wanted to be on the news. And so when I came to Atlanta, I was aspiring to do just that. But I don't think that I was half the woman, half the professional, and I did not have half the wherewithal in terms of what I really wanted to be. So I was in discovery mode. And
Mm.
it was the customer service, it was the follow up, it was the love of people that landed me into human resources. And I started out doing staffing, and from there, it went into the specialist role. And from there, it went into the generalist capacity. And you're right, it has to be a love of more than just people, but more importantly, changing people's lives. And that's how I
Yeah.
ended up in human resources. I did not choose it, Shelly. It chose me.
It shows. I love that. Another thing I want to point out. So there's always questions. So for those of y'all who are interested, who are watching the replay and you want to get into HR, I think one of the things you're going to pick up is Tanya's journey that she already shared. So it wasn't like she started into the job and became an HR business partner like yesterday. Okay, it does take time to build into that role. So I wanted to find out. There's a quote, bloom where you're planted. I picked that up on your profile, and I
Yes.
wanted to find out what does that mean? Bloom where you're planted.
Well, I use that oftentimes. I get it from a recruiting standpoint because I recruit a lot in my role. That's probably the majority of what I do outside of all the other HR disciplines. And it's been something that has resonated with me throughout my career personally and professionally. And what do I mean by blooming where you're planted? It means really to thrive and not just survive, to show up as your authentic self. I think sometimes when we get into the workplace, whether we are talking about from a personal standpoint or a professional standpoint, that we have to be something that we are not. And so, what
Yeah.
I want to do in every aspect of my life is never be fraudulent. I want to show up just the way that I am, whether it's flawed, whether it's imperfect, whether it is a subject matter expert. So wherever I am, I like to say I like to bust up the concrete. So if I'm going to be a rose in any season, whether it's spring, summer, fall, whatever that looks like, is that's perfectly acceptable. Because when I think about even just the blooming part, is the discovery, right, of
Mm.
who you are. It's a beautiful process, and it's something that you own yourself. And more importantly, when you're blooming where you're planted, that means that you accept whatever circumstances that life throws you, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, and you decide that you want to succeed anyway. So that's what I think about it.
Ooh.
Somebody asked me that today when I was recruiting, and they said, I love that quote. And I get that a lot because it's
Yeah.
in my audit office, it's everywhere. And it really resonates with me because I want people to look at it from the standpoint that being who you are is acceptable.
I love that. There's a quote, remain authentic, which is so
Yes.
true. Listen, I do want to say, for those who might be vision impaired, we are actually matching and we're wearing yellow, and it was not planned. So we so
Yellow
we
is
look
my
good,
favorite color.
y'all, and we look good in our yellow today. Just gonna drop that.
Yes,
So
thank you.
so how would you like what do you attribute your success again to be in human resources at the level that y'all are operating? I'm trying not to give out too much information, but she's a leader, y'all, okay? A leader, all right? So what do you attribute your success, like longevity in the field?
At first, that's a really great question, Shelly. At first, when I started out just doing the recruiting and then moving to like business partner and getting to this level of leadership, I often thought that kindness was overrated. And so, what I've realized is that the type of leader I am is approachable, I am authentic, I am compassionate, I am understanding, and more importantly, I am approachable. Most times when people think about HR and they really think about the role itself, they think in terms of it's just disciplinary action. It's not the
Yeah.
greatest place to go. I want to make sure that people understand that human resources is exactly where they need to go. Because when you think about that, being the leader that's compassionate, whether you have had a death in your family or you're wanting to do promotion, it's just being a cheerleader. But for me, early on, it seemed as if those things weren't really important. But for me, it's just like my superpower. So I come with things from a different perspective. And also, it's something where you do have to think about, the business and things of that nature. But I always like to come from the human element first. And of
Yeah.
course, still being a business partner and a strategic leader.
I love that. As I'm thinking about the last couple of years, and I mean, what happened over the last couple of years? Does
What
anyone
happened?
remember what happened? Being in HR it's really tough because HR is on the front lines of everything, right? And especially even coming out of COVID and the pandemic, and as we're trying to align what hybrid work means for some organization, or trying to come up with the best ways that people work, whatever that looks like. um, how have you been taking care of yourself? And I'm saying this because HR folks are the greatest at taking care of everyone. But I'm always curious, like, what are you doing? Like, how are you taking care of your own wellness? All of the stress and all of those things, having it to kind of adapt to the changing working environment.
Let me share with you that a known fact is HR is not for the faint-hearted. And
Yeah.
so you talked a little bit about caring for self, and that is one of the things that are really within my DNA and a principle that I live by. Of course, have to stay hydrated.
Oh yeah.
More importantly, is working out, getting the proper rest. And sometimes when you have done your best at your job is knowing when it's time to leave. Whether you
Mm,
had an early morning start and you may sometimes have a late evening start, is knowing that you have to get your proper rest. And one of the things that I try to do is to be an example for that, is telling people like it's time to go home, or let's shut this meeting down, or we've done everything that we could do. So for me, that is the most important thing in terms of making sure that I get proper rest, that I'm eating well, because I cannot be a whole and holistic
yeah.
employee if I am not taking care of myself. Because guess what? If something happens to Tanya Turner, then that position is going to be there, but I am not. And so if I want to be the best iteration of myself to my family, if I want to sustain myself, I want to live to be 100. And I want to have great skin and look good doing it. I don't want
No
to look broke
wrinkles.
down and like
Yeah.
I just devoted all my time to work. I want to have balance. And so in order for people to have permission to say that wellness is important, I tell people this all the time. It's okay for you to have late morning starts, this, that. People have children, they're caring for their elderly parents. Some people are ill, they have their own personal things that are going on. So I try to lead by example. Now, do I always rock that position like I should? There are sometimes I have to work late. There are sometimes I have to have early morning starts, but I've been at this for so long that I know how to still have operational excellence and still take care of myself. So it's all about balance. That's my
I
word.
love that. I
Balance.
love that. Operational excellence. So there was an article that someone we know shared earlier today. I won't say his name, but it was talking about burnout. And I
Mhm.
wonder if you have any tips for employees or tips for the just for the rest of us to make sure that we're not burning out, or anything that you think organizations can do to get ahead of caring for their employees, and maybe some of what you're doing at your organization.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I think about from a personal standpoint and a professional standpoint. Number one, I make lunch dates with myself. So I block off my calendar. I may have early morning starts, but I may have early times when I depart from the organization. And then mainly, I try not to let people infringe on my lunch hour to have meetings unless they're really mandatory. And then I also try to refrain from blocking off a lot of different things on Friday. So tips for myself and that I give to employees are as such as plan your schedule kind of like every Sunday. Look at what your calendar is looking like so that you can have pockets of time where you can hydrate, of course, where you can actually work out, where you can think about, I know this sounds crazy, going to bed early, because having
Yeah.
good sleep makes a big difference, whether it comes from your immune system, being able to focus, eating good foods, planning out your pay days of when you do get paid, like this is what I'm going to buy to make sure I'm eating healthy. And it's making time for connections, like spending time with people that you love, not trying not to work on the weekends. So everybody's situation is situational. But
Hmm.
in the mornings, I'm planning to make sure that I'm taking my vitamins, hydrating, walking early in the morning, maybe doing a little bit of yoga in the morning, some stretching in the afternoon, taking an afternoon walk, planning to go to sleep early that night because I know I have things that I need to do to be 100%. So, what I may suggest to you, Shelly, may not be applicable to me or
Yeah.
anybody else. So, that's why you have to be intentional about making sure that you plan for your wellness, you plan out your schedule, and learn the art of saying no,
Wow.
respectfully, of course.
Oh yeah, I love that because I think we make a lot of things priorities. I think a lot of us, I hate to say this, as women, we also kind of suffer from this self-inflicted pain a lot of times because we take care of others, but again, we're not making our wellness a priority. And I love the fact that you talked about, taking a lunch. Y'all, even if it's 30 minutes to just leave your desk or leave your office, or going to a different space, or going outside for a break and hydrating. I mean, I think those are fantastic tips. So for those of y'all who are suffering from burnout now, or those who might be moving, moving in that direction,
Yeah.
pause and use some of these tips.
It's a real thing, though. Burnout is a real
Yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah. So all right. So I wanted to find out, I had this question about, for HR professionals who are coming in the field. And I thought, as you were thinking about like your career journey and what was in your toolbox. And this is kind of a hard one to answer because I realized that the advice that you might share with folks who are coming into the HR arena might be different from, even again, because a few years ago.
Mhm.
Um, what advice you would have into someone who's joining? And then we've got a question in the chat that I'm gonna ask you.
Okay. So, what advice would I give an HR professional if I was to go back and talk to my former self when I was unsure and I didn't have the confidence and the wherewithal, and I was still in the discovery mode? We all know that where we've been, and we haven't always been seasoned in
Yeah.
places that we are in spaces. So, this is what I would tell someone. Number one, if you're wanting to launch into human resources, you need to determine, okay, if that is what you actually want to do you want to be in the generalist capacity, which is you generalize and you touch on every HR discipline? It's multifaceted. It's fast paced. But more importantly, do you want to do the specialist realm, which deals with more like relocation, recruiting,
Mm,
benefits, compensation, things of that nature? Or do you want to touch the whole wheel of HR? Dip and dabble in some of these things and find out what you love the most. The example for me would be at one given point, I was given the opportunity to work in the benefits department when somebody was out of the office, and I was a generalist, which means I touch everything. I
wow.
stayed in that position as a cross-functional opportunity. It was a lateral move. There was no pay involved there. And that's another thing, is understanding that lateral moves could be the best moves because they give you the blooming where you're planting, which is giving
Mm,
you roots. So if you decide that you want to be a generalist or a specialist, that's more importantly. But another thing is getting mentors to mentor you, all walks of life. Because remember, you can be mentored at different levels. Even a baby can teach you some
oh
things.
yeah.
You can learn from everybody. You can learn from the CEO to the building maintenance technician to the director of marketing, all the way down to the janitor who cleans the building. They can give you some intellect that you've never ever experienced. But more importantly is joining memberships as well. You know, if you want to be in HR, start thinking about, am I in a non-exempt, which is an hourly role, versus a salaried or an exempt position, because some of those memberships require for you to have an exempt level of
Mm,
experience. And what does that mean? That means judgment, discretion, working autonomy. You're not taking direction from anyone. Remember, upward trajectory is so important, but jungle gym approaches are equally important, which
oh
means
yeah.
I can grab from here to there to over there, because all of those experience where I feel I've gotten, I moved from a specialist recruiting to an HR generalist. And I stayed in that realm for almost 24 years now. And for me, if somebody had told me my former self, and I had a lot of mentors and people who breathed life into me, I tell people oftentimes, if you want this, you have to go get it, and you have to be intentional about how you're going to learn these
Mm,
principles, because these are some of the things that people don't tell you about, the unspoken rules to
yeah.
keep the human resources. And remember, kindness. Remember the people that you interact with. And my brother said this, is that they're like bridges. You may have to cross back over those bridges. They may be the bosses that you didn't quite give the respect to. And more importantly, they are the opportunities. Everybody knows somebody. So when
Yeah.
you're applying for a job, I didn't have the readiness. I wasn't doing everything. Somebody gave me an opportunity.
Wow, that's incredible. Oh my gosh, there's so many jewels. Oh, there's so many jewels that you're dropping right now. This is the kind of information that many of us wish we had before we went into HR, but nobody told us. Okay, but y'all are getting it here and for free. So there's a question here. Do you have to hide or tone down your hashtag Black Girl Magic in the workplace? Is that a trick question?
You know what? I realized early in my career. Remember when I talked a little bit about blooming where you're planted? I'm never going to be fraudulent to myself. From the tattoos that I have, maybe just one on my wrist, from the nose ring that I have, to my hairstyles that I incorporate, to the clothes that I wear, I'm never going to be fraudulent to who I am, because it gives permission to
Hmm.
other people to be as such. And remember, I don't really necessarily get into the title piece, but you have the title, but I have the title to demonstrate that if I'm here, you can be here too. And
Yes.
more importantly, you can be here showing up as yourself. And so, whatever that looks like, whether it's a tie or hair, I do think that P.I.E, when I think about P.I.E from the HR standpoint, like
Hmm.
Shelly, you have yours, it's the performance, it's
Yes.
the image, and it's
Yes.
the exposure. And
Yes.
so, once you gain the credibility, people, yeah, impressions are so important, but people look at you in terms of what you're going to bring to the table. And in the words of somebody who said this, I am the table. I'm not saying that about myself.
Right.
But when you know that you are the
That's
table,
right.
you don't have to worry about what's at the table because you're comfortable with who you are and how you're coming across, and that's equally important.
I love that. I think, one of the things that I try to share with folks about being comfortable, when I talk about being comfortable or being confident, it does come naturally to me because it's just been ingrained in me as part of my culture. I'm Jamaican, so of course we think we're the best ever. It is just baked into who I am. But I say this a lot, that I accept the truth about who I am. So that means I don't accept anything that's counter to that. Like I know what my strength is, and I wrap myself around it, and I love it and I live it. And the idea that you have to hide or tone down who you are, I think like you, like life's too short. We can't dim the light. We either are or you're not, and we'd rather just be who we are. It's less exhausting than pretending for somebody else.
And remember, everybody else is taken. So why are
Exactly.
you trying to not be the salt and light? Because somebody may need that salt, which adds flavor, I might add, and they might need
Yes,
that light because remember, it might be dark. So you never know what it
exactly.
is. So to me, to show up to try to be something that you're not is a disservice to who you are.
Oh, I love that. So I'm going to shift off HR for a little bit because I want to get you while I have you to talk about purpose and some of the things we were talking about before.
Yes.
Because you strike me, you're someone who is very comfortable in this space. This is not a conversation everyone can have. Okay, some of us can do it, some of us can't. We're working on it. But you're one of those really, and someone dropped it. You're phenomenal. You are phenomenal. Um, I wanted to talk about, coming into your purpose and owning your space and, really, when we say that, um, for us, it sounds easy, but it takes work,
Yes.
right? It's not something that just happened yesterday. So can you talk a little bit about maybe what some of your advice is, or what's been like for you for just coming into kind of who you are and coming into your purpose?
Yeah, I believe there's a couple people I think on this Facebook Live that are special individuals, and I want to know that I see everything that you're writing and I value you. I don't have to say your name out loud because you know exactly who you are. So I want you to know
Oh,
that thank you so much for rocking with me and being in my corner to help me tonight. It matters. But more importantly, I would have to say is the one thing that somebody told me, they drew this big circle, visualize, right? They drew this dot in the middle of that circle. And they said, this is the people or the world, right? And this is you if you let them make you that. And so
mm,
they told me, never play it small. Never, never, ever think that I can't do something. There was a question that was on some of the things that you asked, and it's like, what is the
hmm
best, worst advice that somebody had ever given to you? I
yeah.
can't tell you how many times where people have tried to stick a pin in my balloon and let it slowly but surely seep out. If I had believed half of the things of what I wasn't, I wouldn't even be sitting here talking to you today because I wouldn't have the
Mm,
confidence and the wherewithal to think something different. So every day when we think about who we can show up to be, I want to be the best version of myself. I want
mm.
to wear what I want to wear respectfully, of course. I want to
Okay.
do the things that I haven't had an opportunity to do as a single parent. I feel like my life is on a reset. Like my last 2 quarters that I got going on, I'm gonna make it count. I'm gonna make sure that I'm changing lives. I'm gonna make sure that I'm having impact. I'm gonna make sure that people who look like me can sit in this seat and say, you know what? Wow. And she's just doing what she wants to do with her Vans and her Timberlands and her this and her that on. And she's still sitting in seats where there's influence and decision making that's made. The one thing that if I could tell anybody in this world, it doesn't matter what walk of life you've been, where you're going, how hard it was for you. Heck, I was a single parent. I still am, but nevertheless, I remember the times when I was hidden in darkness. And I thought to myself,
Mm.
God, did you forget about me? Did you forget about me in terms of I want to have success? I want to have a, no pun intended, a slice of the pie. Heck,
Oh
I want
yeah.
to have the whole pie, the
Oh
slice.
my,
I want to
exactly.
have a whole pie. I want to be greedy. I want to live outside my wellness goals. But nevertheless, it's just really believing in yourself. Even when the environment doesn't dictate otherwise, even when the experience doesn't look like it's moving, there's a process to this, there's levels to this. And so when I was working, starting out as a coordinator, and I was getting my sea legs, I remember all of the things that I heard. And it used to make me so concerned and teary eyed. And I was like, am I going to be successful? And then I sit here and I still, this is not always an easy spot to sit in,
Yeah.
but it's necessary. So the one thing that you could do for yourself that I feel is really important is showing up. If you could show up and do it afraid and get better and better and study your craft, when you get to sit in seats like this, you know what happens? It's natural, it's easy, it's effortless, it's obvious. Remember that circle that I drew? You
Yes.
are the circle, you're not the dot. When people try to diminish you and they make this circle to make it seem like you are ostracized and you're not included, I build a bigger circle for myself. I do a lot of self talk. When I get ready to do certain things, the wisdom and knowledge that I have, and even what we're talking about today, it comes from a place of being hidden. So when
Hmm.
it's time for me to get on stage, I know how to act. Number one, I
Oh,
know how to govern myself. I know how to take rejection and keep it moving. I know how to serve myself a nice big glass when I get some lemonade and make it tasty. And so, for me personally, I don't think that there's anything that anybody could say to me that hasn't already been said, because I feel as if, Shelly, I'm working in my purpose. Whether that remains to continue to be in human resources or doing something else, whatever it is, I'm going to do it faithfully. I'm going to do it unto God, and I'm going to do the right thing each and every time. So when you're in those hidden spaces, when you feel like you're not being seen, heard, valued, included, that's when the work is being done. Don't worry, when you get to the forefront and get out there on stage, it's called being prepared. So that's what it is.
oh,
Levels to this. It's a process. And remember, everybody goes through the process, and you be no exception to that.
y'all, that was a whole sermon, and I'm taking it in for myself. I don't care what y'all are doing in the first of all, the room is on fire, and I receive all of that. I mean, there are so many levels to your point when you just receive who you are. Receive it. And I'm receiving everything that you're saying because I think a lot of times, Tanya, people see where you are today and they don't understand the price you paid to get to where you are today. They see the end result. So y'all again play on pie. Y'all seeing the finished product. But you didn't see the flour and the eggs and everything that it took to get in there to make it. And that is the part of the puzzle sometimes, the cost, to Valerie's point, the cost that you have to pay. And it's not just with others outside of yourself. Sometimes you got to beat the beast within yourself. I
Yeah.
have to constantly turn that noise down because of seeds that were planted. I don't really give much information. I don't really share about these are the things that I went through because for me, it's like, that was yesterday. Yesterday is gone.
Mhm.
I am where I am right now. And just to hear all of the jewels that you're dropping, I know it's going to change lives again for even the folks who are going to be watching the replay. Because I am over here trying hard not to cry through these glasses.
You know what? May I add something, Shelly, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
It's almost like you got to tone down the distractions. We all have
Yes.
them in life. We all have friends that used to be our road dogs, like people who we could never imagine life without. We're no longer
Yes,
friends because the seasons have
the
changed. The
season.
art of letting
Yes,
go and understanding that sometimes next level living is isolation. It's being by yourself. And you have to understand you can't be the type of person that wants to be in the crowd all the time. Sometimes you have to know how to fall back and understand being in the crowd creates a whole lot of other distraction and noises. Isolation brings more clarity, it brings more of your purpose. And more importantly, what people fail to realize is that they see the end result, but they don't know that there's the iceberg, the time spent, the health challenges, the this, the
that's right.
that, the over here, the over there that people don't see. And there's sometimes it's peeling yourself out the bed to say, I gotta get up and fight another day. I'm not even feeling 100%. Nobody's not necessarily asking about your mental capacity
That's
or
right.
your wellness. And so you gotta get up and break these generational curses and say, you know what, I don't want to show up, but today I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna put on this yellow, and I'm gonna show out like we did. We're gonna show out.
And we show it out. Okay, there's a Tina saying, yeah, everyone won't be in a seat at your table.
Mhm.
And you gotta be okay with that. That's something that I'm learning quickly. That yeah, there are some folks that are not, for whatever intentions they have, it might be good people, but they will not be at that table when I land where I'm landing. So I really I appreciate it, and I'm taking it all in for all the folks who can't say it out loud, but they are. I'm trying not to fog up these glasses. So I wanted to talk about empowering women because I think a lot of what you said just did that. And then what do you think about when we talk about empowering other women? And again, I just want to woosah breathe for all of us who needed to receive this. This is a part of empowering women is giving them the giving them the space to feel okay, to say things like, you know what, my next level living ain't gonna include you. And I gotta be okay with that, right? I have to be able to shift the way I'm thinking to get to where I'm going. And I'm sorry, distractions are not allowed on this train. So we think about women empowering women. What do you think around that? And what are your thoughts about that?
Wow, I smile because it makes me happy. It's a love of mine. You know, first and foremost, I'm never going to sanitize the truth. That is never easy. Always being in these seats as women, you know, establishing resource groups so you can have safe spaces to have conversations. I think the greatest gifts that women can have is having male mentors who can speak influence in the room for them to nudge them in the side to say, it's your time to speak up and I'm going to support you. Things like that. Telling me I got some spinach in my teeth and I'm getting ready to do a presentation and everybody's looking at me like, well, what's going on with her? You know, my thing is when I think about empowering women, I wish, because when we work in certain spaces, we don't always get the support that we desire. And so when we have our tribe, you have to rock with that tribe. When we have our board of directors, you have to just let it all hang out. So number one, you can't spin, omit, and talk to people because you're going to have these ebbs and flow in work. When you winning, you got winning season, and when you're failing, because guess what? There's been a lot of failure over here. I don't know what anybody else, but there's been a lot of failure over here. But I fail fast, right? Is knowing that you're going to make those mistakes, knowing that things are going to happen, but more importantly, is realizing that who is going to support you. So I believe that I love to speak about people who are not in the room. I love to tell the people that I report into how great people are. I love to write feedback about, did you know what so and so is doing? Do you know who's doing that? Because this year, let alone, I was hiring, you know, for my assistant. I'm all about speaking life into her because I wish when I was at that level that somebody was lifting me up and recognizing that what about my mental health? What about maybe I don't want to turn my camera on today because I'm feeling this kind of way? Recognizing that everybody's not going to show up the way that you are or where you're at that moment. It's levels to this. And so for
Yeah.
me, when I think about the women who I speak to and they come from every facet of life, I never stand in judgment. I am a single parent and my daughter is 25, and I know what it felt like for me when I was trying to latch on to some woman who would give me a word. Let me say that, a word
Mm,
of encouragement
mm,
to let me know that I'm not some type of stereotypical individual, that I did have my degree, that I did go to school, that I did show my daughter that you can go back to school and work at the same time, get your master's degree, that I did show her that I will further my education, that I will never succumb to being just a statistic or just somebody who's out here trying. No, I want to win. And like I said, for me, I'm creating tables and places and seats, saying, hey, I got room. Let me scoot my chair over. You can sit here. There's no judgment here. More importantly, just because you say you look at this and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, because if I were to leave this world today, my title, what I have or lack thereof, it's not going to go with me. It's what's going to be important is when I carried somebody in terms of I brought somebody else along. I reached back.
mm.
You can take this role. You can have my job. I tell my assistant, what do you want to do? Because whatever you want to do, that's why I ask her to give me her wins and challenges, because I'm interested. I'm interested in changing the environment for you because I could do that. And that to
Wow.
me is important for women who have children, where they're at the stage where they're mothers and they need work-life balance, or they need to go and pick up their children early, is having that level of understanding. Because guess what? I've been there. Sick children, children that's in the hospital, aging parents. You know, you see people, to be honest, Shelly, you see them on Friday. They were killed in a car accident on Saturday. Next thing you're
Mm,
doing, you're having to deal with all this family and this paperwork and things like that. People are living life. And so if you want to be successful and you want to utilize me, you can use me. I don't feel used, because that's what I am. I'm here to connect. I'm here to make your life easier, because I'm not trying to, get up here. I'm trying to bring you along with me, because I want to see
mm.
people at that table who look like me, who've had the same walk of life or different, because it makes it fun, exciting, and you learn more.
Oh,
So I'm
again.
always been the component of a person who's like, I scoop my chair over on a regular basis. I tell people all the time in the chats, like when we're in meetings, I'm like, this is your moment. You need to say something, and I'm gonna back you up too, right? Like, you did an excellent job presenting that. Oh my goodness, I learned a lot from you. I give feedback to the managers, because this seat gets a bad rap sometimes. That is like the
Yeah.
Green Mile. It's not. It's a helpful resource. It's knowing the talent. Like, I know a lot about everybody. And I want to make sure that people focus on the things that people are doing well. Because that other part, that's not going to get you anywhere. I think you should work on it. Don't get me wrong. But I think you should focus on the things that where you're having salt and light, because that's where you're going to excel the most in.
Oh my God. I would need you to come back.
I'm going to do it
I'm
too.
sorry. I would need you to come back because I'm trying to keep it together, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
I just everything you're saying is food for the soul. It is absolutely, because it's so much more than the job you're in. It
Mm-hmm.
is the spirit that you have in you. That's what we're seeing. And your love for people, and your just your whole, again, your the salt and the light, everything that you're sharing with us. I'm trying to keep up with the room. What a blessing.
Thank
This is
you.
your moment. This is phenomenal. We got a couple more minutes. I do want to ask you one question, which is what do you want to be remembered for?
Wow, that's a powerful question. I want to be remembered for a person who is kind, who was a good mother, because I think that that's important. I want to be a person who's breaking generational curses. And importantly, I want to be a person who is consistently consistent. Because this is showing up for me.
Oh, yeah.
And more importantly, my spirit in terms of how I do my job, it's not just the HR realm. I just happen to be in that realm and I rock that position. I'm going to make sure that every person who comes in contact with me will be a better iteration of themselves when they leave there. I will make sure that you get the just due, that you get promoted, if that's what you desire, that you are seen, valued, heard, that you have a seat at the table. And guess what? You have a safe space, a sounding board for a person who has walked the same journey, if not different, but the same destination, to give you some tools, some resources, some building blocks, and not sanitize the truth to help you to get where you're going. Because I think oftentimes we try to sanitize the truth. Because like I said, this job is not for the faint-hearted. But when I show up, I'm going to show out in whatever environment that I'm going to be in. Remember, I was hidden and now I'm seen and I'm in the forefront. And it's not about my title. It's about my purpose. I'm living out loud. And I expect and I anticipate that everybody else will try and attempt to do the same. Many times I show up doing things afraid and concerned and doubtful, but because I spent the time preparing for these moments, I walk through the door because I'm going to be unapologetic about the fact that I'm going to show up and do the best that I can. And that's one of the things that I have done tonight. And I value and I appreciate you for having me on your show. I value and appreciate the opportunity to have a voice. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Y'all, this is round one of Tanya. Tanya, we're going to need Bible study. We're going to need you to come back.
We're going to need Bible study.
We're going to need everything. Okay, everything. This was amazing. I am so grateful. I am so grateful to you. There are, again, so many jewels dropped, so many ways that we can improve our lives just from your words, just from your conversation. I don't know how many people this is intended for. And so the folks are saying, yeah, you did. You showed up. You blessed us. You see, this is what I say. You come on this program and you will leave differently. So you have impacted people's lives, and all the folks who are catching the replay, that I hope that you picked up the seeds that were planted here from Tanya tonight, and you're learning and absorbing everything. Another one, you're blessed. It is for real. So I am so grateful. Hang out in the back room while we tell these people.
Yes, of course.
Here we go. There's the give. Oh, Queens, your flowers. I am empowered.
Thanks,
you, Tina.
Queen. Thanks, Queen.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody who's been participating in the chat. Obviously, we want to hear from y'all. I know that folks actually even drop stuff in the chat after these programs are closed. So we appreciate, please reach out. Watch Tanya on LinkedIn, y'all. I have a gut feeling some things are gonna go like this. So that's what's happening. So we are so grateful for all y'all. We're gonna say goodbye to those folks and hang out in our back room for a little bit. So thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you. Oh, of course. Be blessed. Be well.